There is a lot of things in life that are difficult. And you have to ask yourself the question right off the top, are you going to be one of those guys that are going to go and back off every time something is difficult? Or do you want to be one of those guys that says, look, it doesn't matter if it's easy or difficult or most difficult, I'm going to go and crush through it. That's me. That's the person that I want to be, and I'm going to prove it to myself, and I'm going to prove it to the rest of the world. So yeah, there are certain things that are difficult. It's difficult for people to have a routine, but they just have to go and do that, and they should just work on it, where they go and say, do something very simple. I'm going to go and get up every morning at, let's say, an hour early, before they normally get up. Just add that to your routine, and don't even ask about it, should or should or not. That's the key thing about the routine, is that you don't ask yourself, should I or shouldn't I? You just do it. Because it is extremely important that we do things automatically, simply because we know that the brain is very tricky. It pulls tricks on you. That's why people become addicts. That's why they cannot do anything about, like if they're into eating a lot, it's very hard for them to get on a diet or to get off eating junk food. Because the mind pulls a trick. You have a New Year's resolution or a goal where you say, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. And then when you see something sweet, you say, well, one day doesn't matter. And this is how it tricks you, because the mind, because you're an addict now to sweets, the mind pulls the trick that it says to you, it sends a signal that says, it's okay. We all have setbacks. If you have personal setbacks, which I've had, or if you talk about health setbacks, which I've had, or professional setbacks, which I've had in the political world, in the show business world, and all this stuff. But I remember, for instance, one setback when I had the heart surgery. I go in 22 years ago. I had open heart surgery, and I got two new valves, the aortic valve and the pulmonary valve. And they told me that within the next 15 years, we have to change them out again, because they were human valves. And so they lasted actually 22 years. So last year, after 22 years, I went in there and got the procedure to switch out the pulmonary valve. They said the new method is that we're going right through your arteries, the growings, and through your arm, and it's a non-invasive surgery. So you don't have to worry anymore about open heart surgery. And this is going to take 2 hours, and by 3 hours, you're totally awake again. So, Arnold, we're going to give you now the anesthesia and, sleep well while we do our work. So I go to sleep. Next thing I know is I wake up, and they say, well, it's now, you've been asleep 16 hours. And I said, why 16 hours? And there was 3 doctors in front of me. And they said, because we had to do open heart surgery. Something went wrong with this non-invasive procedure, and we punctured through your heart wall, and you had internal bleeding, and in order to not have you die on the operating table, we had to open you up. So now I'm lying there, and I get this news that I just had the second open heart surgery. Well, the first thing that came to my mind was that, wait a minute, in 3.5 months, I'm supposed to be in Budapest, and I'm supposed to shoot Terminator 6. I mean, they always say it takes 6 months to recuperate, to recover. I looked at that schedule and I said to myself, okay, when can I get up? And the doctor said, well, not for the next 3-4 days. We would not recommend it. This is because, this was very severe. And remember, you're not anymore the youngest guy in town, and blah, 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 and all this. And so I said, well, he says, the only reason why I want you to get up as quickly as possible is because of your lungs. Because people don't die in our clinic here because of the heart procedure. They die because of pneumonia, because of the lack of activities, and the lung then fills with fluid and blah, blah, blah. So when I heard that, I said, okay, I'm going to be out of here tomorrow. I'm going to be up tomorrow, and I'm going to start walking. So they said, no, that will be a little early. I said, no, just get me a walker. I hold on to it because they were worried about me fainting and falling over or something like this. So I walked with the walker around that station, on that floor where I was, where the intensive care was. And I had friends come in from my office and friends and family members that went on those walks with me. But throughout the day, I would then go to lie down again for 2 hours, and I would get up again, and I would go back with all the cables and all the medical equipment hooked up to me. I would go on those walks as a fanatic. And they would go longer and longer and longer until I did like 2-hour walks where I went like to various different areas in the hospital and all this stuff. And then without the walker, just with the cane, and then without the cane, and all of those kind of things. So it was within 6 days I was out of the hospital. And from then on, I just worked on this and worked on it, walked around here at the house, walked up the hills and everything. And the bottom line was I went back to the gym literally 3 weeks later and started working out with light weights and no chest exercise, of course, and all this. 3.5 months later, I was on a set. And I remember the first day was night shooting. The first week was night shooting. And we were jumping out of the van and we were doing the shootouts and fight scenes and stuff like that. And everything worked perfect. And the director said, I can't believe that you had heart surgery 3.5 months ago. So it's like we have setbacks. But if you have a very clear vision and a very clear goal, you can come back from those setbacks very quickly. The key thing is not to fall into this trap about feeling sorry for yourself. Because there's enough people out there in the world that are suffering much more than I was in that hospital bed when I woke up. I mean, there's all these kind of cases that we hear about, the kind of things that people go through and that are dying. So I felt like there's no reason for me to feel sorry for myself. There was only one thing, and that was for me to kick in and to say, this is just one of many obstacles. That's what happens in life, and you just got to go and kick yourself in the butt and get going. And so you set a goal, have a very, very clear goal, and go for that. So when you talk about the setback, setting a goal and visualizing that goal and going after that is what it's all about. Whenever the medical profession talks about you shouldn't do X, Y, and Z, or under normal circumstances people get up after 3 days, or whatever like that, then I immediately, my brain kicks in and says, this invisible kind of person talking to me and saying, but Arnold, you were not born to be one of the ordinary folks out there. You never were an ordinary person. From the time you were a kid, you were not ordinary. You were driven, you were motivated, you had a goal, you became the youngest Mr. Universe, you came to Hollywood where everyone told you can never be an actor with an accent, and you became the highest paid entertainer, and all of those kind of things. When they told you would never be governor, you became governor. So you're not an ordinary person, so don't listen to this ordinary. Prove to them that there are some extraordinary things that can happen. And so that's exactly what I did. When I got up the next morning after the heart surgery, I said, well, I'm not ordinary. I'm going to prove it to them, no matter how many times I fall all over the place in this room, but I'm going to get up and I'm going to start walking. Because the doctor said if I don't walk right away, the lungs are going to fill up with fluid. So that's the last thing I want, because most people, when they get older, wipe out in the hospital because of pneumonia, or fluid in the lungs, and that's what keeps them in there, and they die in there. So I didn't want to be one of them. So no matter what, I had to prove to myself that I'm not ordinary, that I'm extraordinary, and that I can do it. And so that's what got me out of it. So you just, instead of feeling sorry for yourself and trying to feel like you're one of many people, and the doctor said, you know, that's what normally happens, there is no normal. Always think of yourself as special, and always think of yourself as like, okay, I'm going to prove to myself and to the rest of the world that I can do it. And so that's the way it is in life. You got to know where you're going to go. So if you have a specific goal in mind, then you can go after this goal. For me, it was becoming Mr. Universe, or becoming, one of the top stars in Hollywood. So there's certain things that you have to do. I had to grind it out and go to acting classes at night 3 times a week. I had to go and take accent removal classes. So it takes a lot of work. And that's with everything like this. And that's why I always recommend to people very highly when someone says, look, I try to make the next level in my success. Well, I said, what is the next level? Where do you want to go? And a lot of times they cannot identify what that next level is. But the only way you can go and do the work is if you have specifically and see exactly and visualize exactly what it is that you want to accomplish. So whatever reason that you can find that is a motivation for you, use it.